Coming up on today's show, we're going to talk about the breaking news coming out of the Michigan football head coach Jim Harbaugh, along with Plan B. You might have already heard, but we're going to touch on it. Also, a dark horse candidate. A lot to talk about on today's show following Jim Harbaugh's announcement, so don't go anywhere. We're just getting started right now. Welcome into the Broncos Breakdown, a YouTube channel that covers the Denver Broncos that will not be coached by Jim Harbaugh in 2023. The Michigan football head coach has decided to stay in Ann Arbor. I really did think the $20 million kind of waved in front of him might be enough to lure him back to the NFL. Maybe it was all for leverage to get a raise at Michigan. We'll never quite, well, we will know if he gets a raise, but he has decided, and it's funny, we were just starting to film today's show when he made the announcement, and today's show is all about what if Jim Harbaugh stays at Michigan. So we don't have to change too much. We're just changing some of the tenses in our verbiage. But here it is from the Michigan President Santaono. I just got off the phone with Coach Harbaugh, and Jim shared with me the great news that he is going to remain as the head coach of the Michigan Wolverines. That is fantastic news that I have communicated to our athletic director, Ward Manuel. Go Blue. So, obviously a bummer, right? I think we were all excited for the prospect, the idea of Jim Harbaugh. I know personally, me-wise, like between Harbaugh and Sean Payton, I was leaning Harbaugh. One, I think they're both great coaches, and I don't think a first-rounder should sway you completely from one to the next, but that's definitely going to tilt the scales a little. Nevertheless, there is no Jim Harbaugh going back to the NFL, at least for 2023. Who knows, maybe next year for another club. But the Broncos, these interviews this upcoming week just got a little bit more important, right? Tuesday, they have Sean Payton and Raheem Morris down in LA. Thursday, they've got DeMeco Ryans, the DC for the 49ers. And Friday, it's the Cowboys defensive coordinator for Dan Quinn. So some very important interviews coming up here with no Jim Harbaugh anymore. All these interviews feel like they just got that much more important, right? If we were all banking on Harbaugh or Payton, well, this is going to be the second half of the show. What if Payton decides he doesn't want to leave retirement, right? He doesn't feel there's a good fit out there. Then Raheem Morris, DeMeco Ryans, and Dan Quinn, we might have sort of overlooked them a week ago, but now they are definitely in the running here. Now, let's expand on Sean Payton for a moment. So, Sean Payton hopped on Colin Cowherd and Ari Miroff tweeting out that Payton has spoken to Saints GM Mickey Loomis, and trade compensation to acquire him will probably be a mid to late first-round pick. I'm trying to think where the Broncos are picking right. Oh, right, the mid to late first round, right? Towards the later end with the 49ers. So I'm kind of hoping if the Niners keep winning, all right, trade it. Won't be our pick anyway. Now, could change, but that definitely gives you a better floor and a better base of what to expect. And sometimes teams put out those asking prices just to drive it up a little bit and then come back down sort of in a bargaining agreement. It sounds like it'll cost a first to get Sean Payton here. Now, if not for Greg Penner, I do believe this. There would be no Sean Payton coming to Denver. I think Greg Penner taking over this head coaching search, basically telling George Paton, I'm running the show. Can you just organize the interviews and I'll take your input, but I want a proven head coach. And I wouldn't be shocked if George Paton deep down inside goes, I don't even know if I want to trade for Sean Payton, right? I like my first round pick. We're going to go a back-to-back years without a first-rounder. I know that was the plan originally, but with how 2022 went, getting a first-rounder back was huge, especially when you look at the rest of the Broncos draft picks for 2023. It's a long fall from no first-rounder all the way to the third round. You do have two third-round picks, but still, nothing in rounds 1 or 2. I wouldn't be shocked if George Paton goes, I don't know, Jim. First rounder plus Dan Quinn. This team wasn't all that bad last year. They had 9 one-score losses. I don't know if we necessarily need to go for a home run hire. It might just be fine with Dan Quinn in a first. That's probably what George Paton is telling himself. Now, Sean Payton's interview schedule is busy. He's got Denver, Carolina, Arizona, which, by the way, the Cardinals just hired a GM, which means they can start the head coaching search process. I thought that might put them behind a couple of weeks. They quickly hired a GM, and this new GM, he's going to get to work immediately. And then there's the Houston Texans as well. There's one team that's not on there, though, and that's probably the team Sean Payton wanted to go to the most, and that's the Chargers. If the Chargers' job does not open up, I think between those four teams, it's Denver or wait a year for a couple of reasons. One, Sean Payton does like Russell Wilson. He wanted the Saints to trade for him. Maybe it's a blessing in disguise because he got to see him last year, but I think Sean Payton's betting on himself that while everyone looks at the Broncos as a project and a dumpster fire to jump into, he sees a team with 9-1 score losses, talent across the roster, and a quarterback that was just poorly coached and was injured for off and on throughout the season. And then there's also a $20 million price tag, and he might decide to come back for that. So if it's not Denver, he might just wait another year. He has talked about that. He's not in a rush. He likes working at Fox Sports. He might wait till next year when the Chargers maybe do fire Brandon Staley or the Cowboys move on from Mike McCarthy. I don't think it's a team this year an absolute guarantee. He might decide to pause for a second season. We've got more coaching buzz to get to in just a moment, but we are so close to 11,500 subscribers here at the channel. I need 20 of you who have not subscribed to please go ahead and do so. The entire Chat Sports Network today is trying to do a bit of a sub competition, and I don't want to finish bottom, right? I don't want to go pick up lunch for the next week or so. So help me by subscribing down below, and help yourself too, because you're going to get the best Broncos YouTube coverage all off season long. So what's plan B, right? This is kind of funny. This is exactly what the show is about. Let's say Sean Payton stays retired and Harbaugh stays at Michigan, which we know now he is staying at Michigan. What's next, right? We already got half of that equation sort of checked off of if Harbaugh stays in Michigan, which he is, and Sean Payton stays retired, goes to a different team, ultimately does not end up in Denver. Well, I'm looking at this interview list, and there might be another name added with Jim Harbaugh being removed from the running. They might want to find someone else. But if there's no Sean Payton and there's no Jim Harbaugh, there's Dan Quinn, there's Evero, D'Amico Ryans, Jim Caldwell, Raheem Morris, and David Shaw. For me, plan B, I think it's what plan A should have been last year, right? And that is Dan Quinn. The Broncos are interviewing Quinn on Friday, like we mentioned, and it might be a bit awkward because Denver passed on him for the young shot Nathaniel Hackett, and yikes. So maybe Dan Quinn comes in and he goes, you know what? You need me more than I need you. He was patient last year. We all thought Dan Quinn was going to get a head coaching job. He might have turned down some gigs because he didn't feel it was the right time. What if he feels the same way this year? Why is Dan Quinn coming into this interview thinking the Broncos' job right now is better than it was a year ago when he got passed up on? But I'm not going to say it's an absolute, guarantee that Dan Quinn is going to look at the offer or the situation in Denver and decides, I want to go to the Broncos this year. They didn't want him last year. You might take that a bit personally, and maybe he's going to be patient. And you go, you know what? I'll wait it out. I'll sit in Dallas. Who knows? I could take over from Mike McCarthy if they lose to the Bucs tonight. So Dan Quinn, I don't think is an absolute lock as a, hey, the two hottest girls said no to us to the prom. I know you have glasses, but do you want to come, Dan Quinn? No. He might decide, I don't need you as much as you need me. We've got more coaching news and rumors to get to in just a moment, but today's show is presented to you by LinkedIn Talent Solutions. Here at Chat Sports, we have been growing and hiring like crazy, like producer Tex on the ones and twos, doing a phenomenal job. And he wouldn't be here today if it's not for LinkedIn. They have been so crucial in helping us grow. And if you own a small business or you run a company and you're looking to bring in the best talent possible, well, you should check out LinkedIn Talent Solutions. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. You want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available. And that's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right place for your team faster and free. When you add when you add your job and the purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you're hiring, you're going to get flooded with some of the best candidates out there. Simple tools like screening questions also make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. It's why small businesses rated LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates that you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at LinkedIn Jobs #1. Okay, post your job for free at LinkedIn.com/NFL Daily. One more time for myself and everyone in the back, LinkedIn.com/NFL Daily. Post a free job. I've got that link for everyone in the comments and the description of today's show. Let's get back to some of the Broncos head coaching buzz here. Now, if I had to think of, I don't know, a potential dark horse candidate, I know this might not be the sexy name, right? I know this might not be the guy that everyone thought coming in here, but Dan Quinn may not be a dark horse, but Dan Quinn's defense for the Cowboys was pretty darn good in 2022. Takeaways, first in the NFL. Yards allowed, they were 12th. I mean, it was a top-tier defense outside of run defense. So this isn't my dark horse. This is my plan B. But I don't think it's an absolute guarantee that if the Broncos were to offer Dan Quinn the job, he would take it, which is why we got to be prepared for a dark horse candidate. Now, I'll get you that name in just a moment, but I need your help really quickly because, honestly, I've got a pretzel in my brain, Ricky Bobby style. Who do you got tonight? You got the Bucks or you got the Cowboys? Who do you have in tonight's Monday night playoff matchup? I'm rolling with the Cowboys. The Bucks stink. Let me know in the comment section below who you have in the final wild card matchup between the Bucks and the Cowboys. So, as I've been saying, let's get to, emergency plan C or D. Sean Payton declines. Jim Harbaugh, which we know now, is staying at Michigan. And Dan Quinn passes on Denver. Well, then the Broncos are looking for a new head coach that's not one of those three guys. Check out LinkedIn Talent Solutions. We'll get you the link at the bottom. So with that, dark horse candidate, what about Raheem Morris? I know, we did not wake up today thinking Raheem Morris is our guy, but I don't think it's a long shot that those three things do not happen, right? I'm a little surprised by the Harbaugh news. Sean Payton's not a guarantee, although I think he would be looking for the best opportunity. And I do think that's Denver with how much he loves ownership, and the Broncos do have really good and really rich ownership here. Now, more on Morris, though. So, you're my dark horse candidate, and I'm just wondering, I know that things did not go swimmingly well in his career as a head coach, right? 2009 went 3-13 with the Bucks. He was the youngest head coach in all four major sports at the time. 2010, 10-6, 2011, 4-12. But the Broncos do want someone with head coaching experience. And Raheem Morris does check that box for you. So Morris's career since a 21-38 record as a head coach, it looks like this. He's been the Rams defensive coordinator for the last 2 years, taking over after Brandon Staley. And Rams players love him. They love his leadership. They love his presence in the locker room. You got to remember, you're not just hiring someone's defensive numbers. You are hiring someone to be the face of your team and be the head coach. And so you are hiring a person as well. You're not just hiring the stats of their defense. Remember that. Before the Rams, various coaching roles with the Falcons. He was the, Redskins DB coach with Washington before that. And then, like we said, the Bucks head coach and the Bucks DB coach, from 2007 to 2008. Like I said, I don't see the Broncos going a first-time head coach route again, right? They're just not going to do that. Vance Joseph, Vic Fangio, Nathaniel Hackett, all first-time head coaches, all done in 3 years or less. So for that reason, if they're looking at their options, Jim Caldwell's there. He's got head coaching experience. But Raheem Morris is pretty well liked around the league, and he might not be a bad dark horse candidate. I don't think I'd have a meltdown, right? There are coaches I would have a meltdown if they hired, a.k.a. Nathaniel Hackett's evil twin brother. But I do think if Morris is named, it's not, face into your palm onto the table, this is a disaster. It's definitely not what we wanted, but if the top 3 options fall off the table because of, one, we already know Harbaugh staying in Michigan, Payton deciding not to come back to the NFL, and Dan Quinn salty over getting passed up last year, who's left? And it might be Raheem Morris. So let me know if it's not Jim Harbaugh, which we know it's not anymore, yeah. And if it's not Sean Payton. So really, if it's not Sean Payton, who do you want as the head coach? Dan Quinn? That would be pretty fine by me. Dan Quinn's definitely my number 2 after Sean Payton right now. Let me know in the comment section.